Yo, Aaron here. Greetings to all my current subscribers and any newbies. Thank you for taking a chance. In this lesson, we're going to be learning the 2 guitar parts from Echo by Coldplay. Let's have a listen. Before we get into the parts, there are a couple of things that you need to know. The 2 guitar parts in this are both in different tunings. The part that Johnny Buckland plays is in standard EAD-GBE guitar tuning, and the part that Chris Martin plays is in DAD-GAD tuning, D-A-D-G-A-D. But he does have a capo on the 5th fret, so that makes it something else, okay? So let's get into Chris Martin's guitar part anyway. So the first thing we're going to learn about Chris Martin's guitar part is the strumming pattern that he uses. Now, when Chris Martin strums, he does kind of use some additional fingers, but we're going to concentrate on the dominant strumming pattern that happens with the 1st finger. And that strumming pattern goes like this. Down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up. And that's it. He repeats that pattern throughout the whole of the song. And in the intro, it would sound like this. So that takes us on to the chords. Now there's a few notes we need to make about the chords before we get started. First of all, I'll be referring to the strings as if the guitar were in standard tuning, E-A-D-G-B-E, because that just makes things easier. I'll also be referring to the frets as they are relative to the capo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And for each new chord, I will put a timestamp in the video so that you know where that chord appears in the song and you've got a reference point. So, what is the first chord? It is this. We take the 1st finger of the fretting hand and put it on the 2nd fret of the D. We take the pinky of the fretting hand and we put it on the 4th fret of the B. And we strum 5 strings, everything that isn't the low E string. Gives us our first chord. For our next chord, we move the 1st finger up to the 4th of the D. And we put our pinky on the 5th of the B. And again, we use the same 5 strings. And for the 3rd chord, we put our 1st finger on the 5th of the D string and our pinky on the 7th of the B. And again, the same 5 strings. And that gives us the 3 chords of the introduction. Let's move on to the verse. We have a key change here, and the first chord of the verse is this. We're going to place the 3rd finger of the fretting hand onto the 5th fret of the A string, and we're going to put the 2nd finger of the fretting hand onto the 4th fret of the D string. And we're going to strum all 6 strings. Then what Chris Martin does, while he's in this position, he simply plants his pinky down next to his 3rd finger on the 5th fret of the D. So if you can see that movement there, we're going from 2nd to pinky on the D string, while the 3rd finger remains in place. And once we've done that 2nd chord, we go back to the 1st chord again. So that gives us the first part of the verse. Okay. Then the next chord is this one. We have our third finger on the fourth of the low E. We have our pinky on the fourth of the A. And we have our first finger on the second of the G. And then we strum all the strings again. Then we take our third finger to the third of the A and our second finger to the second of the G. And we strum only 5 strings this time. So again, we omit, we do not strum the low E. And the way we're going to mute that low E is either by using our thumb on this hand, which is very common, or you can use the very tip of the third finger and rest it, brush it against the low E. And that'll also mute it. And then the next chord of the verse, we take the second finger and we place it on the second fret of the A string. And again, we don't play the E string, but we do play all the others. So if I go through those chords in sequence. All of those verse chords go round once more, and then we're into the chorus. The first chord of the chorus, you're going to take your first finger of the fretting hand and place it on the second fret of the A string. Then you're going to also take the pinky of the fretting hand and place it on the 5th fret of the D. So you get these 2 notes. And again, we strum only 5 strings with our strumming pattern. The next chord, we take off the pinky and we put down the 3rd finger onto the 4th of the D. So we've had this movement. I appreciate that it's kind of difficult to hear that when so many of the notes are the same. You just have to try it and trust what I'm saying. Okay, so then after that chord, we take the 3rd finger and place it on the 5th fret of the low E, and our pinky goes on the 5th fret of the A, and we strum all 6. Then for the final chord in the chorus, we have done this one before, we move the 2 fingers we've already got on the fretboard down a fret to the 4th, and then we place our first finger on the 2nd fret of the G. That gives us the final chord of the chorus. So the chorus in total . I hope that was helpful. Let's move on to Johnny Buckland's guitar part. Before we can actually play Johnny Buckland's part, what we need to do is make sure we revert back to standard EADGBE tuning. All right. So the song opens with this Mixolydian downward scale, which goes like this. The first thing to note is that he uses the pick of destiny, as opposed to Chris Martin using his fingers, which gives it a nice bit of extra texture within the music. But how do we play that descending melody? We take the pinky to the 10th of the high E string. Then we use the second finger on the 8th of the high E string. And then we use the first finger on the 7th of the high E string, which gives us these 3 notes. D, C, B. Then we do that same pattern again on the B string, except when we go from fret 8 to fret 7, from the G to the F sharp that is, we actually do a pull off. And then we finish that little sequence with the 3rd finger on the 9th of the G. And the next part of that sequence, we're going to bar the 7th of the G and the B strings to give us these 2 notes, the note D and the note F sharp. And the pattern, we pick the B once on the 7th and the G twice on the 7th. And then we go up to the 8th fret of the B and pick the B once again, and then the G twice again. And then we go up to the 10th of the B with the pinky, and we pick that once, and then we pick the G string once. So notice how the G string is always on the 7th fret, and it's the B string that goes 7, 8, 10. And that covers us for the intro. Let's move on to the verse. So the first thing Johnny Buckland does in the verse, he puts his first finger on the 4th of the G, and then he plucks the open B, and then comes back to the G again. So what you essentially get is the same 3 notes in a row, but played on 2 strings. Then the second finger goes up to the 5th of the G, and we do the same pattern again, G, B, G strings. And then the pinky goes up to the 7th of the G, and we do the same pattern again. So you get this. After we've done that, we're going to take our second finger to the 4th of the D string, our first finger to the 3rd of the B, and we're going to leave the G string open. And we're going to go D, B, G, D, B, G, D, B, G, D, B, G strings. In the next part of the sequence, we place the first finger onto the B string at the 3rd fret, and we're using the open G to begin. And we're going to go G, B, G again. And then in the next chord, it actually does exactly the same thing, and it works over that next chord as well. Then we've made our way into the chorus, and this is possibly the simplest part. So we're taking our second finger up to the 12th of the G string, and we're going to pluck that 4 times. Then we go down to the 11th of the G string with the first finger, pluck that 4 times. And we go back up to the 12th of the G with the second finger, 4 more times. Then we get the pinky up to the 14th of the G and pluck that twice. And then it goes 11, 12, 11 with the first, second, first fingers. So all together. And that whole sequence goes around twice in the chorus.